Hello Summoners and welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Nathan Ng and I'm here with the 12.2 mid-patch update. We provide updated tier lists for all 5 roles and follow up on the balance changes from the patch. Make sure you hit that sub button so you don't miss out on future content like this, and let's go ahead and get started. First off, we'll be starting with the top laners. Akshan is being moved up to the OP tier, which is probably something that we should have done a while ago. Akshan is considered by many high elo players to be the absolute best blind pick possible. He's an incredibly impressive laner, able to bully both melee champions and ranged ones with his annoying in and out trading style. And if your opponent ever makes a mistake of being narrow wall once you mark them with your passive, you can go ahead and go for a huge trade with your E. You don't even need to be fed for this to 100-0 a squishy enough foe. Just base damage alone is enough to send them packing. I recommend running Ignite. Most opponents won't expect just how much damage you can do early, and you can very often pick up a kill the second you get level 2 against a disrespectful foe. Camille is also being moved up in the list. Camille is simply too consistent to be considered anything other than OP. In fact, 2 of her hardest counters, Tahm Kench and Shen, both receive some slight nerfs to their dueling strength. This gives her even more breathing room and makes it very likely that you're going to be coming out of lane even, if not ahead. And anytime you're at least just making it through the laning phase as Camille can be considered a victory, given how disgustingly hard she scales. She's sort of fallen off in popularity compared to the last season, but honestly, I don't know why. Both her and her items she builds are just as strong as they were before, so you're a fool if you aren't using her to rake in some free LP. Jace has been moved down a bit just from the OP tier to the S tier. Jace is a really hard champion to execute, with only a small percentage of players really being masters of him, but when you do get him down pat, he's an insanely strong carry. But that being said, he just doesn't really belong in the OP tier when Akshan does. Akshan fills a similar role, being a ranged bully that can also go in for all-ins on foes, but he does it a little bit better, and with less counters. Jay struggles to deal with a couple of bruisers, as well as Akshan himself. Vayne is a really strong duelist later into the game, but early game, she's more of just, kind of annoying due to her range. In terms of her all-in power, she's not that great, but can easily lose lane if played poorly. I almost consider putting her in the B tier, but with good wave management, she can still be pretty strong. That being said, if you're the type of player that thinks winning lane means just always trading and having no regard for the state of the wave, then you're probably not going to be winning most of your games. Wow, the top lane this patch does not look very fun, just a lot of ranged top laners. That's exciting. Speaking of ranged top laners, Gameplay moved up a bit in the tier list because if you're really good at him, he can definitely be a really strong carry once you make it to the late game. But he can't really make it much higher than the B tier at the moment. If he ends up in a bad lane matchup, he's just so incredibly useless. He does have really good scaling later into the game, but you'll find it really hard to farm side lanes when behind, since most of the time you'll just get ran down by some split pusher or assassin. Despite his popularity in pro play, Renekton is not a good pick in solo queue. For a champion that's supposed to do well early and snowball hard in the mid game, his laning phase is just kind of meh to fill that niche. The result is usually giving a free lane to a much more OP champion, who then proceeds to take over the game while you run around aimlessly. Now for the jungle, here's our list. Nunu has been performing way too well to not have him in the OP tier. In fact, our analysts almost want to make a god tier just to put him in it. He's just way too good and way too consistent of a pick. He's mechanically super easy, so anybody can pull him off. The snowball allows you to, well, snowball, and it provides you with a lot of pressure early, and since he's a tank, he can easily fit into any comp. He also does a decent amount of damage, which you can amp up by going for offensive items like Demonic Embrace and Magi's. It was a tough decision on whether or not Nidalee deserved to be moved up a tier or not. Statistically, she's not that great of a champion, but that almost entirely is due to the high skill floor of the champion. If you put a mediocre player on Nidalee, the results are usually pretty bad. The champion is nearly useless when you're on your A game. But when played well, she's one of the most 1v9 picks in the jungle. She can clear quickly and play like an assassin early, so you can very easily snowball off hard and very fast. If you don't have lanes to gank, you can easily invade most junglers and kill them on their camps. Now here's our tier list for the mid lane. Twisted Fate deserves to be a little bit higher because even in the worst matchups, you can at least play safe and use his ultimate to get the other lanes ahead. He later becomes a very strong macro-based champion. He can split force the enemy team to answer you in a side lane, then use his ultimate to make picks and force fights with a numbers advantage. Nico also gets bumped up to the A tier. She's super well-rounded, but she's not a jack of all trades. But she is pretty damn good at everything that she does. She has good wave clear and poke, strong trading with her EQ combo, and post 6, she has a lot of kill potential. Her ultimate is also huge in early skirmishes and team fights. LeBlanc is also new to the A tier, but this one's a demotion from our last tier list. LB is a really solid assassin, but the one issue that keeps her from being just under the S tier is that she generally wants to work with the jungler a lot to make kills happen. If your jungler isn't cooperating, then you won't be getting her full potential. At least she's still extremely annoying. Kennen just simply doesn't belong in the C tier. The C tier implies that even in ideal situations, the champion is bad or there's at least a few other picks that would be even better. Kennen isn't super great into mages that outrange him, namely champions like Victor or Anivia that can just simply use a free farm to scale up into hyper carries later. But he is amazing against assassins and can completely shut them out at all stages of the game, and then be way more impactful in teamfights. Ryze, on the other hand, is definitely a champion that does belong in the C tier. He has no good matchups, and while he does scale decently, he doesn't nearly scale as hard as any of the other meta mage picks. Maybe we'll get Ryze's next rework soon to push him back into being viable. I mean, they're kind of long overdue for another Ryze rework, right? Now let's move things down to the bot lane. Swain gets bumped up to the S tier for two reasons. For one, his laning phase is absolutely disgusting. He has no bad matchups against a single marksman, and as long as the support game isn't absolutely immense, you'll pretty much never come out of the lane behind. The second thing about Swain is that with his ultimate, he's simultaneously an absolute massive damage threat and drain tank. You don't have to worry about needing peel for an assassin or a diver ever jumping on you. You just heal right through their damage as you melt the entire enemy team at the same time. Seraphine also gets bumped up a slot. Stats should always be taken with a grain of salt, but when a win rate breaks 55%, there's no denying that it has to mean something. As a support, Seraphine is actually pretty awful right now. The lack of income and generally lower XP means that she's not even useful in 5v5s where she's supposed to shine. But as a carry, she's free to farm up, so you can go ahead and buy all that ability haste that you need. And that becomes really good as you level up, so you can go ahead and use your spells way more often. Heimerdinger is great for neutralizing most laning phases and does super well into dive-heavy enemy comps. Instead of needing a heavy peel like a regular ADC, you just want the enemy team to come to you for your turrets. The only reason that he's in the A tier instead of the S tier is because when he's against comps that choose to sit back, he isn't nearly as oppressive. Lucian has been moved down to the B tier because he's only good in a few select scenarios. He still pairs really well with Nami and maybe a few engaged supports, but engaged supports are generally not very popular right now. If you don't stop playing harder with him, he just pales in comparison to the more popular picks. Our replacement of Varus has been corrected to the C tier. He never really belonged in the B tier because, well, even in the best situations, there's no reason to really lock him in. Ashe and Jhin both provide more catch potential, but also have the benefits of not actually being completely garbage in the damage output category. To finish things off, we have our supports. We wanted to see how Janna landed post-revamp before deciding where she belongs, and after seeing the results, she definitely deserves to be up in the S tier. She lost some of her damage capabilities, but her ability to actually peel and protect is pretty much as good as they come, since you can go ahead and hit her tornado more reliably now. Zilean is also moved up to the S tier. His laning phase is definitely a bit lacking, providing very little pressure in the first few levels, but the wait for him to scale is well worth it. No one enables other champions quite as hard as Zilean. Whether you're sending a diving Hecarim into the enemy team, or giving an ADC the speed that they need to kite a big threat, his E is just about as strong as his ultimate in terms of how much utility that it provides over the course of a teamfight. Thresh gets bumped down a tier simply because his super well-rounded kit doesn't really shine strongly enough in any particular area to make him an S tier at the moment. He still has a lot of playmaking potential, but his biggest weakness is that the bot lane isn't in a really super aggressive place right now. Most lanes involve more poking and sustained battles, and not so much just running in to fight 2v2 all-ins. Yuumi also gets moved down to the A tier, and honestly, it was a tough decision to not put her in the B tier. She's good if you have somebody that is going to be a hard carry later on that you can attach to, but you're entirely banking on that, since you're almost certainly going to lose the laning phase. There's also the fact that your ADC is probably going to be tilted from laning with a champion that doesn't provide that much early. Good riddance, I don't really want to see this champion anywhere. Alistar is being bumped down to the B tier, and he's only this high because he's pretty good in specific situations. But those situations are few and far between, and most of the time, you'd much rather have an engaged support that's a little bit more well-rounded, like Leona. Tahm Kench is getting a little bit of an adjustment from our previous tier list. We thought the buff would make him a pretty strong support, but he's just way too situational. He does pair really well with Twitch and Kog'Maw, and does insanely well with the fasting Senna, but outside of that, he's pretty underwhelming. And that about wraps things up for our 12.2 mid-patch update. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to let me know your thoughts on where the champions fall in the tier list down in the comment section below. Also, check out our description for a link to join our Discord community. With the new year and the new season started, we're bound to have some really great content coming up for you guys. Best of luck, Summoners on the Rift, and you know the drill. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.